Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels and short stories. With me is Sam West, and we're starting something new today. I'm excited to announce we're going to call it Warlock Wednesdays. And for now, we're going to be discussing all the Eldritch invocations. And to start things off on a high note, we're going to be talking today about Agonizing Blast.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's yeah, I'm not a big warlock player yet. I
You
think
should be.
yeah, I think I will be in the future.
Mhm.
So tell me a little bit about invocations in general.
Okay, Warlock Invocations, generally speaking, you get them as you level up, and they're the meat of the Warlock class to me. Warlock Invocations are kind of like class features. They're kind of like just, when you level up a fighter and you get your Indomitable, right? Or you level up your Sorcerer and you get your Font of Magic. Except they're also kind of like spells, and a lot of them end up being exactly like you can get to cast the spell, you can do a thing with the spell, you get a spell, but these are the constraints around it. Sometimes they're like little augmentations and passive effects, sometimes they're new tools that you get access to. They're a really high customization element. They tried sort of to bring this back when they made the Artificer class with the Artificer infusions, but a lot of that ended up boiling down to be like, you make magic items from the DMG, and I don't know, I'm not as high on infusions as I am on invocations, but like for reference, you get them starting at second level, and you get two of them, and then you get another one at fifth level, and you get another one at seventh level, and you get another one at ninth level. So these are things that you get very quickly throughout the game. And because warlocks have the pact magic feature, which heavily gates their spell slots, right? You get 2 per short rest up until like, oh, what's the level? I'm looking at it right now. 11th level, and then eventually you get a 4th per short rest, and that's at 17th level. So like you're going with very few spell slots comparatively, so you need these invocations to sort of define what your character does. That's sort of their goal, right? And the reason I like them so much is because if you only take 2 levels in Warlock, or if you only take like 5 levels in Warlock, you get 3 invocations, and that can lend itself to doing a whole wide variety of things very well. It opens up a lot of doors that are otherwise closed to you, and it sort of is just like a build your own character kind of option, more so than a lot of other features in the game give you access to.
All right. Well, let's get into specifically Agonizing Blast.
Okay.
What does that give us?
Okay, so Agonizing Blast has some of these have prerequisites. This is one such one that has a prerequisite. Normally, it's either a level or like you have to have a certain pact, or you have to have a certain cantrip. In this case, it requires you have Eldritch Blast. When you cast Eldritch Blast, it's very simple. It's 1 line of text. You add your Charisma modifier to the damage it deals on hit.
All right. Well,
Easy peasy.
that's that. Now, you historically are not a huge fan of Eldritch Blast.
Yes, I acknowledge it
But
is powerful.
for the same reasons you are a fan of things that hinder you in certain spells,
Mhm.
um, you're not a fan of well, well, now I mean, Eldritch Blast you say is powerful but boring.
Yes. So a lot of times what I find happens, like we just said, you get 2 invocations at second level and third level, up until fifth level is when you get your third one. So I find it to be a fairly tall order to spend one of them on a cantrip that you already have. So you have to like spend one of your 2 cantrips on Eldritch Blast, and you spend one of your 2 invocations on Eldritch Blast, and then it's sort of like all you do, but you do it pretty powerfully, right? Like it's just like, yes, I've dedicated half of my build so far to a better longbow. And a better longbow is good. Like, I'm not going to here to tell you that doing a D10 plus 3 damage round isn't something. Especially when you hit 5th level, you get basically extra attack with it, right? Like, it's a bonus feature on top of it. I'm not here to say that's bad. I find a lot of players that play Warlock for the first time, though, are looking for they love the lore and the fantasy of it, and they go, okay, well, I'll take Eldritch Blast because everyone should take Eldritch Blast, apparently. And then, I want to upgrade it because I don't want to just do a D10 damage. Rolling 1 sucks, and I'd rather have a minimum of like 4s. That seems way better. So you take Agonizing Blast, and then you feel like that's all you're doing. At the same time, if you stick with it and you start getting other invocations, you can kind of just take Agonizing Blast and forget about like any other Eldritch Blast or damaging invocations the rest of the time. This can be a way you just say, okay, I know what I want to do in combat. I don't really care about combat that much. It's not really my thing, but I want to be effective. All you need to do is take Agonizing Blast on your sheet and you'll get there, because that's all you need to do. Because Eldritch Blast gives you the rest of it. It gives you multi-attack as you scale. It'll be good throughout the entirety of the game, and it's powerful. It's pretty good.
All right. One thing.
Okay.
It's not a longbow. It's an Eldritch Blast.
Sure.
That What are we playing the game for, Sam?
You're right. You're right. There
This
is the
is
fantasy of it. It's
yes,
a
and this is why I cannot find it boring. It's I'm
I want
Eldritch
you to
Blast.
say that after you cast Eldritch Blast for the 105th time between levels 1 and 5.
You haven't seen me eat lunch. I swear to God, I
That's
make the
fair.
same sandwich every day, and I
It
love it.
I will definitely say it does come down to personal preference. I am the kind of person that I like to do a variety of things. I like to have a variety of options. I don't want to do the same puzzle every single time, but there are people that just I want my chicken tenders and ketchup every single meal, and that's entirely their preference. They're allowed to like that. It's not a bad thing to say, no, I enjoy and find comfort in the I sit down on my character sheet. I know exactly what I'm gonna do every single round. I have to make very few decisions and I get to have fun blowing shit up. That's perfectly reasonable. I tend to like the Warlock class because it gives you a toolbox to do a whole suite of wacky, wild things that aren't necessarily inherently very powerful, but can be weaponized in some really neat, nifty ways. It really encourages creative thinking. It really gives me exactly what I ask for out of it. Whenever I'm like, okay, I want my Warlock to be a skillsmith toolbox, I can get that. I really want my Warlock to be the illusionist trickster, I can get that. With Eldritch Blast is like I want to be a multi-attack ranged fighter is what it feels like to me to play mechanically, and that's why I'm not a huge fan of it. Even though you're like, oh yeah, I fire 2 bolts of black eldritchy magic that explodes on hit. Neat.
Well, there are. I mean, this is not the only. Agonizing Blast is not the only buff to your Eldritch Blast as
Yes,
far as
that's true.
invocations go. Correct.
I
Um,
would say it's the only meaningful one.
ah,
I think I might get a lot of flack for that. I think if you take Eldritch Blast, you don't need anything outside of Agonizing Blast. Like, if you take Spear, you're getting 300-foot range, and you're probably just trying to abuse that, and, like, you don't never need it, so your goal is to, like, do the sharpshooter thing-ish, and that's, like, you could take, like, Grasp of Hadar, which gives you a 10-foot pool with 120-foot range. Like, if you're shooting things that are 60 feet away, moving them 10 feet closer to you, like the other ones aren't particularly. One of them makes it like a Frostbolt light, and I've talked I've talked in one video about my thoughts about Frostbolt. So it's just kind of like you could take those. You could continue to customize and build up your Eldritch Blast. You could like really lean into it and do I am 100% all in on Eldritch Blast. Or you could take other fun new toys to play with, right?
all right, well,
You could do
we'll
other
get in.
things as opposed to one thing slightly better.
Yeah, and we'll get into all that in future videos. But we are supposed to be talking about Agonizing Blast.
Sure.
Uh, and yeah, like you said, it's one line of text. But one line of text, but you wrote a very large article on this one.
Yeah. So the reason is because Eldritch Blast builds fundamentally rely on it. This is something that if you're going to do some min-maxy munchkiny stuff, you're probably taking Agonizing Blast. And the reason you're probably taking Agonizing Blast is because it functionally once you hit a +5 charisma, it's like doubling the damage that each Eldritch Blast does, right? Because it goes 3, 4, 5, and it's doing it on average 5.5. So it's like, yeah, your Eldritch Blast are twice as effective almost with a higher floor, lower not the range of it is not exactly double, but it feels that way.
Right.
This matters a lot because I mean, like, this is just talking about Eldritch Blast generally speaking, but Agonizing Blast is tightly knit and attached to those builds. So like a very simple and obvious cheesy example that is often used is Quicken Spell with Agonizing or with Eldritch Blast, right? So Quicken Spell lets you spend sorcery points from the sorcerer class to cast spells as bonus actions. And notably, you can't cast a bonus action spell at first level or higher and a spell a first level or higher with your action in the same turn. But you can cast cantrips. And whenever your cantrip is better than most first and second level spells because you've kitted out your Eldritch Blast attack 3 times around for 3d10 plus 15, and then you double that to go to 60, 10 plus 30, you're like, okay, this starts to get pretty munchkiny and good. And then you can do things like take 2 level dip and fighter to get action surge, and then like once per short rest, you're like, okay, I'm gonna volley out 9 or 12 or 15 Eldritch Blasts at everything around me and kill them all. And that's pretty cheesy, munchkiny, and easy to do. You just basically take a 2 level dip into Warlock for Agonizing Blast, and the rest is at Sorcerer or the 2 levels on Fighter. You can also get into cheesy things with the Coffee Lock builds, which are like, the idea is we'll definitely touch on Coffee Lock later whenever we're going through these invocations.
What is it?
So it's called Coffee Lock because the idea is you don't ever take a long rest. The idea is you are shotgunning coffee to stay up, and you're using the sorcerer's font of magic to eat the packed magic spell slots to turn them into sorcery points. And if you do the math, it funds you more spell slots at any given level than you're getting by long resting. So you just take 8 short rests instead of 1 long rest, and you're turning those short rest spells that you get from the warlock into sorcery points. Now, enter Agonizing Blast and Eldritch Blast. You can turn those into quicken spells, and then all you're doing for all of time is just firing out 6 to 8 to 10 Eldritch Blast every single turn when you're sitting on a well of like 500 sorcery points. It's cheesy and munchkiny, and is definitely not going to work at a lot of tables where DM's like, that's stupid. We're going to say you can't take more than 1 short rest sequentially or something like that. But it is a cheesy little munchkiny build. The Warlock class has a lot of fundamental problems that make it really ripe for abuse. And this is one such case. Agonizing Blast is a contributor to the abuse cases for Warlock, where it's like, yeah, this makes Eldritch Blast really good, because at its minimum, you're like, when you take Agonizing Blast, you become equivalent to the martial characters as far as multi-tech scaling goes. You don't need anything else beyond that. You just need 2 levels in Warlock to have that guaranteed for the rest of the time, just because of how Eldritch Blast scales and how this scales with Eldritch Blast. And then you're in a situation where, like, the world's your oyster. You can take a full 18 levels in Sorcerer if your heart desires. You could just multi-class Civ 16 or the other 10 different classes in the game, doing whatever you really want to do, and you'll still be functional and proficient in combat, because at minimum you've got 2 or 3 Eldritch Blasts you're firing out for really solid damage.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's Agonizing Blast, I suppose. You got a rating for this?
Okay, sir, if we're gonna rate these,
are we gonna rate these? We can
sure,
set that precedent now. We've just been rating everything else.
Let's just rate everything. Why not?
Yeah.
I'll give this an arbitrary score. Agonizing Blast. So I think I don't like it, but I acknowledge that I'm in the minority. I think that if you're playing a warlock that doesn't want to specialize in combat but wants to be proficient in combat, it's a fairly cheap cost in the mid-tier to pick this up. And it will give you that proficiency in combat that you are looking for while you spend the rest of your stuff on Misty Visions or on Fiendish Vigor or on the upper level stuff like Chains of Carcy and stuff, where it gives you more fun toolboxy stuff to do. So I think that at minimum makes it a 4. If you're playing the Munchkiny stuff, it's kind of the reason Eldritch Blast becomes cracked. It's kind of the reason why the Gatling Gun Sorcerer builds, where you're just like firing off 40 Eldritch Blasts, it doubles with effectiveness, and that's ridiculous. So I think that lands it comfortably in the 4 tier. It doesn't necessarily break the game on its own, and that's why it doesn't deserve a 5. You have to do a lot of work to make that build come together. You need to make a lot of specific choices to make that build come together, but it is a big offender in that build as far as like making it really obnoxious. So 4 out of 5 seems right to me.
Yeah, it feels like a 5 to me. Because I don't have a lot of experience playing Warlock, but when I finally do, when I finally first start playing them, I will be relying on Eldritch Blast, and
this is probably the first Invocation you're taking then.
We'll heavily be relying on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that, and there you go, 5 for me.
I will say one last little closing note. Most of the invocations fit in 1 and 2 camps. They're either passive or actives. So like Agonizing Blast is a passive effect. You stick it onto something, it doesn't give you something new to do. It just makes something that you were already doing slightly better. There are a fair bit of variation in these. I tend to very much favor the active ones. I like the ones that give you something new to do. I like things that expand my repertoire as a player. So kind of you can think of it between like jack of all trades versus specialization, right? This is definitely a specialization Agonizing Blast or Invocation. This is definitely I'm taking a passive effect that makes this one thing better, and that's all I really care about doing. That's not really for me. I know there are other people that's not really for them. But like you, Bob, some people adore this kind of thing. So
all right, well, I'm looking forward to using it. That was Agonizing Blast. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. We will see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.